Okay, so you just got the message. We are recording. Today is, what is today, March 25, 2025. It's the fourth Tuesday of the month. It's our monthly Cosmobiology Institute research meeting. Cosmobiology Institute is a nonprofit dedicated to advancing astrology through evidence-based practice. Um, and Um, Starting tonight, I'm going to co-host with Christopher. And I have a lot of complementary knowledge of different things, and um, so I think with tonight we officially co-host together. Um, so Christopher, you can say hi.
Hello, it's this will be an exciting experiment. I don't have anything in particular to talk about tonight, but looks like there are, research projects lined up to talk about, and anything anyone else wants to share about the research that they're doing or any questions they have about research. Well, hopefully we'll get to that later.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we're all about is helping you do what you want to do. That's what these meetings are for. Is for all of us to get together and help each other with any questions, ideas, explorations, projects we're doing. So far, there are three things that have come that I can think of. There are probably more that have come up in the previous meetings. Just to review, Penelope is doing the research on eclipses. We had some really good meetings about that. One meeting in particular, we spent, I think, almost the entire meeting talking about the design for her research to researching eclipses. She's using vibrational astrology and using Linda's frequency finder program. So, exactly how is she going to conduct that? How do you proceed? I think we made a lot of progress with that. And let me see, Marlon's not here yet. So I'm going to go down um, to Greg, who is here. And Greg is interested in doing research on forecasting. Prediction with transits. He uses transits, secondary progressions, and solar arc directions. And he uses planets and houses and rulerships. And as soon as you use houses and rulerships, well, houses in general, the big question is what house system? And it can pretty dramatically affect some things. So he's got four house systems he wants to work with. And it's basically what we do as astrologers. We say that certain experiences happen when there's something with transitinatal or progressinatal or whatever. Well, is it true? Can we test that idea using modern research methods? And there are always, almost always, things you can do to elevate our understanding using modern research methods. One of the things, if nothing else, that you can do is you can remove selection bias. And that simply means you don't pick the charts. As long as you're picking the charts to analyze, there can be a lot of unconscious, even more than conscious bias. Like why are we picking this chart? Why not some other chart? So just having some procedures. One of the things that's tricky with a lot of the research you guys are thinking of doing is how to make the research so that someone else can replicate it. That's something you can always drill into your mind. Like, if I'm doing this research, if somebody else wanted to replicate the research, even with the same data, would they come up with the same results? Or are you using some subjective criteria that are not completely clear? So, say with forecasting, when transiting Saturn is conjunct the sun, then sun is in the ninth house, and the sun is ruling, say, the seventh house, everybody's going to come up with different things. There's a million different ways. In modern research methods, you want other people to be able to replicate what you did. So it's not just your secret recipe, right? It's like everybody has their own secret sauce that they mix in there. Can you explain it in a way that someone else can come along and come up with the same information and the same conclusions? It's not easy. So those are some of the things that have gone on that we've discussed. I've been working with people. So we can talk about some of this stuff. I've been talking to Marlon and Greg about what they're doing. Um, but do any of you have any kind of question at all? It could be a general question, a specific question about something you're thinking about. That's what we're here for. We're here to have this roundtable, just get together and sort through how we can answer questions in astrology.
Yeah. Can I throw in just a couple of things
Yeah,
about
yeah,
what you have
please.
said?
Yeah,
One thing I think is good is, different statisticians will prefer different techniques sometimes for analyzing data. Uh, you, Santino, you'll often set up astro signatures and wound up comparing means between two groups.
right.
For various reasons, I often like to compare frequencies or proportions to various groups. And one way to kind of replicate things is to take the same set of data, but analyze it in different ways. If you're getting consistent, uh, significant results using different statistical tests, then that tends to increase your confidence in what's going on. And the other thing I want to mention is a lot of statisticians say, and this applies not only to astrology, but just to statistical studies in general, a lot of people say that there is a replication crisis out there. Maybe as many as three-quarters of the statistical studies people do never get replicated. And showing that significant results replicate themselves on different sets of data is another way in which we get increased confidence in those results. And that's a way of verifying that these results were not just statistical flukes or artifacts, as they're often called. And, one of the things I'm interested in, I'm in the process of just reviewing a lot of the statistical studies that have been done in astrology. And, I have two goals in mind. I want to see what we know and, what things are out there that we ought to research that we haven't researched yet. And the other thing is when we have an outstanding result, can we replicate that on a different set of data? Because if we could, uh, then that would be something very important to do. And sometimes we also have, like you had recently done your own study on introversion versus extroversion on data that your advisor when you were in graduate school had collected, and you didn't get any significant results. Uh, but there are other studies out there. Some studies have gotten significant results, some haven't. And that raises more questions. It means that someone has to come along and look at all of those different studies and try and figure out, what's really going on here. Why did some give significant results, others failed to do so? So all of that stuff is important.
Wow. Wow, I'm so glad we're recording this. That this is that is everything you said. I'm like 100% cheering you on with what you're saying. All of this is so important. Um, the bottom line, I guess, is that research is a never-ending process. You're
Yeah.
increasing confidence, increasing confidence. It's sometimes I think people have a naive idea that you do a research study and you make a discovery, like bam. It's an incremental process. You do research, and then someone else has to do it with new data, look at it in different ways. A good example of looking at data again was researcher Kiosti Tarvainen did research on married couples using a database of over 20,000 married couples. I reanalyzed what Kiosti did. I did this basically the same research using different software, using a different statistical test, and also varying some of his ideas a little bit. And this is what helps us either increase the confidence in what the original study did or decrease it, or maybe just raise new questions. But it's essential because trying to figure out how Mother Nature works is a never-ending battle, you might say.
Yeah, and did you get similar results to what Kiyoshi got?
Um, I got some similar results, some different results. And here's another thing that's interesting. The results that I got are similar. I interpret it in a different way than he does. And I
Oh,
question his conclusions.
oh,
And
that's interesting.
yeah, and this is another thing that happens is that nobody in research ever gets it right all the time. You need other people to look at it and they'll see things, understand things, view things. Everybody will see it a little bit differently. And so it's a constant, um, quality checking that goes on as we review. So um, in the end, my conclusions were very different from Kiosti's. And this is what happens in research. We're just trying to get to the truth. And whether you agree or disagree is not, we try not to be so personal about it. We're just trying to get, you know, the answer. Why do people get married? And that was the question
Yeah,
he had. And, um, I replicated. And then I did some other research using a different astrological model, using the vibrational astrology that I use rather than the modern Western ideas that Kiosti used.
yeah.
So,
Dave,
What,
Dave,
what,
okay, we'll let Christopher talk first. Yeah.
yeah, was that with the Gauquelin data that Kiyoshi was using
Yes.
for that? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that later. And I often think about how, the paper that a person gets published, it's often very neat and tidy. But when you're dealing with the data is rarely so nice
Yeah.
as final paper because the data contains a lot of noise from other influences.
Right. Yeah, we might have a chance to talk about that tonight. The Gauquelins, Mikkel and Francois Gauquelin, they're famous for having collected data. Until I started getting into research, I really didn't realize the extent of the data they collected, because we hear about their famous people data, but they also collected data on married couples, over 20,000 married couples. And I used that, and Kiosk used that for the research. And Des, you wanted to say something?
oh yes, you said that you was gonna do my study the next time you came on the
Oh,
online. You remember
yes.
that?
Yes, yes,
Funny
yes.
enough, you could just insert it and check and see what you get on that. You have it. It's been months we're on this case, so you can just draw it up and see what you get.
Yeah. That does give us a,
And that would be just an easy one to kind of get with everybody making their point of view on it, and you know gather information input from all different source, and it would just be just simple, not get into too much arcane stuff, just ready set go.
yeah, that will be one of our topics for tonight. Essentially, what Desdale is doing, and correct me if I say anything wrong, Des, is that he wants to research degree areas. He has ideas that say 0 to 10 degrees Cancer or some area of the zodiac has a certain kind of effect. We're all familiar with this idea.
Hmm.
How would you test that? How would you find out if a certain degree area, whatever it happens to be, that you think has a certain significance? How can you use modern research methods to answer that question? That's what research is about, how to answer a question. Um, So we'll talk about that. Let me first just take in any other thoughts, and then let's answer this question. How can you research degree areas? Um, okay, does anybody else have any thoughts before we dig into the degree area?
Yes, Santino.
Yeah.
Um, I've been out of VA for a couple of years now, and I'm taking Linda's classes again. And I can't believe how much the definitions of the vibes have changed. They've been, like, for lack of a better word, upgraded and much more accurate. Is there any way we could have at this institute or somewhere where we could have a current set of definitions of the vibes? And of course, these would be upgraded, but you know, I'm, um, you know, I my major was one major was philosophy, and I need to define my terms. And
Yeah.
yeah, I need to have a good set of definitions. And is there some way we could do that here? Because
I can email anyone who wants it a file of my current meanings of the vibrations. And Linda, you have some more vibrations that are not in my file.
That's
We've
right.
gone over some of the ones in my file and we, agree, I think, on almost all of them. We're pretty close, but it's not a complete file by any means. Do you have any thing assembled of all the meanings of vibrations with the current understanding?
I have a kind of a shortcut that I use in the VA diary, but that's not really what we're looking for here.
Yeah,
Uh, I would have to sit down and write it up.
yeah. Yeah, I can send you my file, Will. You can let me put my email address. You all have it, but let me put my email address up here. And anybody who wants this file, just email me. It's better to email me than put it in the chat because I get
oh,
over.
Michelle just mentioned the repository. God, I've loved. I think this would be a good place to have it. Um, Maybe an index somewhere of all of our basic terms and what the current meanings of the basic terms are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything is just dependent on somebody maintaining the
Yeah,
thing.
somebody has to
Uh,
maintain it.
yeah, because I'm overloaded, Linda's overloaded. So if somebody wants to volunteer to maintain the repository and kind of be in charge of it and like tap our shoulders, do you have any updates to this and whatever, we can do that. Or people can just upload as they will and just have various files there. We can do that as well. Some of the stuff I don't like to put out into the public because it's not cleaned up. Like what I have for the vibrations, it's just like random notes. It's not made for anybody to read it. It was made to remind myself of the latest ideas we have. So, before I put something out for the public, I like to clean it up and make it more coherent. Because what I have now is sort of incoherent notes I made.
Michelle, I believe, just volunteered.
Michelle? All
Great.
right.
Michelle, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Um, Michelle, Will, why don't you guys pick out a place for the repository to be? And then you could email me and Linda, for example, and let us know what you come up with and how you want to organize it.
Yeah, even if we maybe create like something in a Google Drive or something, and
Exactly.
people can have a link. I think that this repository is fundamental for what it is that we have going forward. That's just my thought anyway.
Yes, my thought too.
Yeah. But if
I love
anyone else
it.
wants to, help, like, I can create the Google Drive and have it open and share a link, and, we can all collaborate if anyone wants to jump in.
A long time ago, I started writing an interpretation of every three planets and every vibration. I'm like maybe 5% through it and never continued it. But files like that could be uploaded in case people want to build and expand on it.
Right.
So that's exactly what a repository would help us do, because otherwise these things just sit on somebody's hard drive somewhere and they never get shared and develop together. So I love it. I love it. So Michelle and Will, you
The
guys
biggest
work
thing,
it out.
yeah, the biggest thing you need to look at is what is the source of your interpretations? Are they done through extreme case sampling, etc.? And that you have to look at what you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, from an evidence-based practice standpoint, if you want the repository to abide by the standards of evidence-based practice, then everything needs to be vetted and looked at and uh, and referenced properly. Because there are people coming out with meanings of vibrations like crazy right now, and how careful they're researching it, is it really evidence-based? There's some debate about that.
Yeah.
So, if you make it open for anybody to just put things up there, in my opinion, you're going to get a lot of garbage that looks good, sounds good, but it actually isn't researched very well, which can be fine. I mean, if you're interested in somebody's personal opinion or whatever, that could be fine too. So, you can decide how you want to do that. But I think Will and Michelle, you guys can brainstorm about that and let us know.
Why you guys don't do this? Each time you guys have a meeting, just like what we have right now, a revised, somebody might come into the chat and talk about vibe, and because you guys are talking about it and get updated, you just immediately put it into that drive and done with it. Whereas just anybody arbitrarily just puts anything, a drive, it be sort of, processed by who is at the meeting, and on that basis, you will have much more of a cleaner drive, and just anybody that's putting anything inside it.
Yeah, my feeling is, yeah, exactly. My feeling is that since Michelle and Will are willing to volunteer to do this, they can decide those little details of exactly how you want to manage it. Um, I mean, any variation of it can be fine. It's just a matter of what you think is best. I mean, I'm
No, no,
very strictly evidence-based.
I'm just saying that if a vibe is discussed, or any one of the vibe, somebody, um, Michelle or any one of them can just say, okay, they have come with them a little bit of an updated view of the vibe. Let us gonna insert it in this drive and categorize it, bam, 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 and there we go.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
least everybody will aware of it.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Okay. Any other thoughts before we start? I think we'll discuss this topic. How would you research degree areas? And we'll get input from a few of you. I'd like to, Christopher, see what your thoughts are, what my thoughts are, and anybody else on. There could be many ways to approach a question. Um, okay, are we ready to dive into this? I just want to cover any quick questions in case you had some. Okay, let's talk about it. Um, Desdale has some ideas on what different degree areas mean. How would we use modern research methods to determine? I mean, we know what astrologers do. They do a bunch of charts and they talk about their clients and famous people, and they experience it, they work with it, and then everybody shares their opinion. That's essentially what we call anecdotal evidence. It's kind of the lowest level of evidence. Anecdotal evidence is often the first step in research. It's not bad. It's a very wonderful thing. It's just that it's the first step. And then you would go on to a second, third step. So, from doing charts or whatever, you get some ideas and you want to see if they're true. So, Christopher, let me start with you. What thoughts, do you have any thoughts? What comes to mind to test this idea?
Well, my my first question for Des, or my first thought would be to, if he's looking at 10-degree sectors that he thinks has a special meaning, that say, okay, let's pick one particular range of degrees in some particular sign, and then tell us, what that is, and tell us what additional meaning you think that has. After we hear that, then we have to think about, is there some way in which we can measure that? Because we have to have something to measure in order to do data analysis.
Okay, so you're thinking we can just get one range,
Yeah, one example that
one
is
example.
from
Let's get an
that.
example of what he's talking about. So this makes sense. Instead of jumping to answers, let's get a better idea of what the researcher has in mind. So Des, give us one example, just one, of a range of degrees, range of the zodiac, and just some idea of how you think of what it does. Are you there, Des?
Oh, you're muted.
Oh,
Hello? I didn't hear that. I was. Could you repeat it yourself? Didn't hear that.
give us. We want just one range of degrees. Like I think you were doing something like 0 to 10 degrees Cancer or
Okay.
something. And then
Uh,
and then just a few words about what it means. Just one example.
okay. Let us do from 90 degrees to 99, 99 and 59 minutes. Okay. Don't That's the degree range.
Okay.
Okay, that's more like an 8-5 or 8 uh energy, like an 8 house or 8 sign energy. So it will talk about intensity. We'll talk about people who are very um investigative research type people. We talk about crime, talk about money, earnings, power, and intensity in all the degrees. These are what will play out in these degrees. Once you plug somebody in this frame, they're going to show some features of either they're going to be a power broker, a person who's either into crimes or into investigation, people who are on the undercurrents of life. uh, they will tend to be leaders in their society, um, uh, and they will have some sort of some compulsiveness about them, and that will give them this descriptive. Anybody who is in this zone going to pick up some of this energy right
Okay.
here. So these are the things that you look for. They're going to be power brokers. They're going to
Yeah.
have something that they were authorized, and they're going to be like investigative crime built persons. They're going to be in some sort of that scenario in this lit. So you're going to find some
Okay.
figure
Okay.
anybody.
And
Now
now,
another thing to note. Another usual thing is to get the sun in to get into the real zone of this person. The sun is going to be like in the back end of this, right? You're going to need the rising sign, the moon sign, and the midpoint of the moon sign and the rising, the midpoint of the moon and the Mercury sign, and the rising and the Mercury.
okay,
And
hold
then
on, hold on.
lastly,
Slow down. We want the ascendant, the moon ascendant midpoint, the moon
yes,
Mercury
yes,
midpoint, and what else?
yes. Yeah, let me slow down. We need just uh, the rising sign and the moon midpoint. That's one.
Hmm.
We're gonna need need the rising sign and the Mercury midpoint. That's two. We're gonna need the moon and the Mercury midpoint. That's three. And on the back end of it, you're gonna need the sun and the moon midpoint. Those are the fours. What's going to happen now with you getting those midpoints? That will closely microscopically bring you closer to the person, and mirrors you just spectating that this person is in some
Okay, let me
sign
just
of,
clarify something. So you're using four midpoints. You're not actually using any planets. You're just using those four midpoints?
yeah. You want to use those four midpoints, the four midpoints. I mean, the plan is already in those midpoints.
Okay.
You just it's that's you're going to have a greater zooming of what that
Yeah, we don't
person
need any
is or what
explanation. We just want to know the facts. So,
all right.
because we'll get to that later. So we've got the facts. You've got four midpoints. And if those four, any of those four midpoints are between 90 and 99, I'll just call it 100, 0 to 10 cancer essentially. They're going to have this.
It's very sensitive to the pit. Anything over that is going to be a difference,
Yeah, I
different
got it.
sign,
90,
different.
90 degrees to 99 degrees,
Yeah.
50 minutes. So Christopher, we got the information.
Yeah. I have some questions.
Yeah.
Do we have one question here or several questions? In other words, the first thing I heard was that essentially this first decanate of Cancer, Des is claiming that as I understand it, it has kind of an eighth house or Scorpio cast to it.
Hmm.
Yes.
Is that a standalone question, or do the midpoints also have to be included? Does a midpoint have to fall in that zone, for instance?
The midpoints have to fall into that 90 degrees. That's what it is. It's got to be in there. That's what
Yeah.
we're
Okay,
going to
so
find.
if you don't have a midpoint falling in there, then you don't get this the eighth house Scorpio kind of intensity that you're talking about.
Um, you will get that on the lesser degree. You
Oh,
will
okay.
get
So
more.
it's
You get more of a full blast when you have these midpoints. The other one is
oh,
just like the up. It's just the standard arbitrary thing that we do, thinking that the sun was going to drive us into getting more the answers to people. It's more the rising and the moon sign that you will get really the deep descriptive of anyone that can meet. You're going to get that, and if you
Yeah.
figure it into these 90
Okay,
this
we
phase
got it.
we're
I
talking
want to
about.
keep moving.
yeah.
I want to keep moving forward with the design. So just to make this very simple, and correct me if I'm wrong, he wants to know if any of these four midpoints are in that first decade of Cancer. So we could give 1 point to each, and then you'd have a score from 0 to 4, right? Would that make sense,
Oh,
Des? We could have a score. Anybody would have a score from 0 to 4 for how many of these midpoints they have in that degree range.
okay. Let me place some points on the midpoints. Okay. All right. So you for the midpoint of the moon and the rising, we're going to place 6 points on that.
Okay.
And for the midpoint of the Mercury and the rising, that's what we're going to put 4 points. And then for the midpoint of the moon and the Mercury, we're going to put 3 points in. And then for the sun midpoint, we're going to put 2 points on.
Okay. So if you can see my screen, you can see my summary. Um, Moon ascendant 6 points, ascendant Mercury 4 points, Moon Mercury 3 points, Sun Moon 2 points. So it looks like he's already got a clearly defined idea, and we can just score people. Let's see, the total number of points, 6 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 15. So a person will have a score from 0 to 15, depending on what midpoints they have in that area. Is that correct, Des?
Yes. Once you
Okay.
got that, there will be zoomed as the descriptive that I have said earlier.
Okay. All right. So Christopher, we now have that much information. We're defining the research. Now what do we do?
Excuse me, do we
Yeah.
have a definition of ascendant? A valid definition of, or an extreme case sapling that backs
Well,
up?
for this research, it doesn't matter what the ascendant means because the researcher just wants to know if the moon ascendant midpoint is in that section, in that first decade of Cancer. And if it does, the person's going to have an increase in this power and leadership tendency.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's an interesting question, but I don't think it affects this research project.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were going to test another area, say like 100 to 110, would you use the same four midpoints?
Yes.
So what you're doing here is you're saying the effect of these four midpoints in this particular degree range is this eighth house Scorpio energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
I
in
think
other words,
yeah, go ahead, Christopher.
the midpoints, if you have any of those midpoints in the first decadent, the first 10 degrees basically of Cancer, you're saying that you're claiming that it will activate this eighth house Scorpio kind of energy
Yes,
and
it
make
would give you that
it hair.
descriptive. It would
Yeah.
give you the descriptive because what that happening is that the people who have these midpoints and they're in that range, they're going to come up as persons who are power brokers. They're going to be people who are into crimes or criminals.
Okay.
They're going to be
Let me clarify another question. And I think the answer is yes, but I just want to confirm it. If somebody had all four midpoints in that first decade of Cancer, they would have 15 points. They would we would be very confident, according to your theory, that they would have these qualities more than somebody who only had, say, sun moon midpoint and only got 2 points. So the more points you have, the more likely you are to clearly have these qualities, correct?
yes, most definitely. It's like you're just going to be closer to the hit point. You're going to be bullseye target right there.
Yeah, you're going to have more
You
confidence.
have
Well, let me just answer this with yes or no. If you have more points, are you more likely to have these qualities?
definitely.
Okay, good. All right. Because
So
this is the thing with research. With research, we want to be very, very clear, even if we think we know what the person's saying, we want to be very clear and write it down. So, okay, so now we have that information, Christopher. Where do you want to go next with this?
If I were doing it, I would probably use some of the tools that you've already built into Sirius software.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to your list of famous people, for which presumably autobiographies are available, and you would create the astro signature for these midpoints falling in that decadent, and then you could use find the extreme cases. Start with extreme case sampling here, and then you could look at extensive biographies of these people to see if there are keywords in their biographies that would match the keywords that we associate with things like, 8,000 Scorpio, the things that have been mentioned up above. And then as a control group, you could take, the people at the bottom, people who scored 0 for midpoints in those decadents, and look at their biographies too, and see if
Would you
their
just
biographies.
randomly take a few of the people that scored zero? Because there will be a lot of people that score zero.
Yeah, it's you could use a random number table to
Yeah.
select a sample, or you could do a systematic sample, depending upon how many, you know, people you have that scored zero, and if you want to get a sample that's comparable in size to
Well,
those that scored really high, you could pick like every 10th person or every 100th person in your list, just depending.
well, are we the question it seems to me would be, are we assuming, and I don't think this is necessarily true, that somebody who is not does not have those midpoints in that area will not have these characteristics?
Well, no, I don't think we should assume that.
Well, then it doesn't make any sense to try the ones with zero and see if they don't have the characteristics, because we're not assuming they won't.
Well, since if we're looking at what I've deemed eighth house or Scorpio characteristics, there are other things that could give you those characteristics. But
Exactly.
those may occur more randomly among the people who scored zero on all of this.
That's the key. Let me underscore that point. This is a wonderful discussion. Is yes, the people with zero will sometimes have the same traits as the people who score high, but this is statistics. It's not 100%. They should score on average much lower because they're going to have random tendency to be leaders and intense and all this. So they should score much lower, but they're not going to score like zero. They'll just have average
Yeah,
scores.
if the theory works and the group that scored high, these characteristics should be more consistent.
Yeah, they're going
And
to be more consistent. Exactly. So that's what we're doing.
yeah,
But these are great questions. The control group would just have a random emphasis on this. Um, or they might actually be lower than random because they don't have this zero cancer. But in any case,
Or you might find that the control group has more of these characteristics than those people in that area.
that could happen.
that could happen, and that would tell us that the theory might be backwards.
Right, right. It's
Maybe
I mean,
0 to 10 cancer makes you, docile and agreeable or something, and you'll find just the opposite.
there's various things that could happen that could make it more difficult to do the research. For instance, uh, if the um, if the group that scores high on these midpoints, it might be really too small to really do good analysis with it. Hopefully it's a good size group, and then hopefully you would see these characteristics appearing in all the people, and hopefully you would see that the greater the number of points you have, the stronger these characteristics are.
Um,
Uh,
that is not what we've experienced with extreme case sampling, Christopher.
yeah, I haven't done it, so I mean, I'm just saying it could be, it's possible that that could happen.
Well, what we find in extreme case sampling, and David has talked about this a good number of times, is that the extreme cases skew the data tremendously.
Yeah,
And that if the extreme cases are not showing the characteristics you want, then you know the characteristics don't exist there because it has to show up in the extreme cases.
right, right. I'm just saying that,
And
you
it
know,
doesn't take that many of them. 10?
10,
That's the part I was, I think, disagreeing with you on. You don't have to have a large number of those extreme
oh
cases
yeah, 10
to
might be enough
show,
for me. I'm thinking as like if there's just one case.
oh, well, there won't be just one.
Yeah, but theoretically you could have just one, and then I would be a little bit dubious about drawing
Yeah,
conclusions.
if you only had,
That's
if
all
you
I'm
had
saying.
a database of 39,000 people, which is what the AA data that we have in Sirius,
Yeah.
and you only find one person with a strong score in that area on those four midpoints, that just sounds very unlikely to me.
It probably is, but I'm
But
just
it's a
talking
good point.
theoretically.
If you don't have a, a certain number of cases, but it doesn't take a whole lot.
That's also that is a good point from experience.
Yeah.
And if you
Uh,
have 10
Dennis,
people who score really high, and if they're all very strong in these characteristics, then yeah, I think that's meaningful.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you
uh,
look at a good random sample of sufficient size of people who scored zero, and you find that those characteristics occurring a lot less frequency, like we said, you'll probably find some because there will be
Yeah.
some who will be strong those characteristics for other reasons. But there we're now comparing proportions.
Yeah,
But if
It's
you
100%
have,
in one group,
okay.
10% in the other. That shows there's a big difference.
right.
but if
Yeah.
you have one
Uh,
of those top 10 people that doesn't show these characteristics, then the whole theory is called into question.
okay.
There may be something else in the chart causing mitigating.
Well, yeah,
Can I say something? I like what Chris said. Chris said the magic word is proportion.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? You're going to have a number, a smaller number. I guess that's what you guys are talking about. The greater portion of people, 75% and over, is going to have those characteristics. Then you're going to have the other portion that might be the ones that you'll be talking about that, hey, well, what about this group that it seems like it's just not you're not figuring in. Those in terms of proportion, you're going to have a 3-to-1 proportion in terms of what the results might comes out to be. You might have varying different situations. It might be some wrong information in or something that to do with some
yeah.
other things that we're not
Let-
viewing. I'm just saying, let me just finish this. It maybe some things that we're not viewing. And because I do some things a little bit different from what you guys do, I can either say the reason why for some of the reason that you might get something different from that. And I'm just going to just keep it as simple as possible. Just remain it just like how it is, as how you guys kind of ratifying what to do. I'm just going to keep it that way. But I have other viewpoints as to other reasons why things might differ. But I just leave it there. We're just going to keep it simple and sweet.
Yeah, I think that's good. Let me mention something. When I've done extreme case sampling studies before, they mostly were less sophisticated than what Christopher's suggesting. I didn't do a control group. I just looked at the top people, who has the most Scorpio, who has the most, and I also didn't have a clear hypothesis like Desdale has. I basically said it was more exploratory. Like, what do extreme Leos, what are they like? Are they arrogant? Are they proud? Are they theatrical? What's going on? But it was more exploratory and open-ended. Because it was so exploratory and open-ended, I didn't really want to have a control group. It was a first attempt to see what the data is telling us. It's more of a data mining process to see what the data tells us. In Desdale's case, he has a clear idea of what he's expecting. And Christopher is suggesting we have a control group. Since we have a control group, we can compare proportions. In the research I was doing, I didn't want to have a control group because I was just exploring. That would be for a second phase. Now that I have a clear idea of what the zodiac signs mean, I think doing Christopher's design would be an improvement because we could say now we expect because we got some shocking results in the zodiac sign
Mm-hmm.
research. Pisces is not intuitive, spacey, psychic. How do you like that? Completely contradicted everything that we've been told. And what Scorpio does acts very, very differently from what we've been told. So it needed that exploratory
And
research.
Aquarius.
Aquarius, not rebellious, not at all. So the the application of modern research methods, about, I'd say maybe 60 to 70% of the time, agreed with a lot of what astrologers say, but 20 to 30% just completely disagreed. So, I wanted to explore the data first. Now that we have an idea, we could do it with a control group. And so I think this is a little bit different because Desdale has a clear idea. And I think with the control group, which I think is a great idea, now we can do proportions and it's okay if one or two don't agree. Whereas with the exploratory, I was looking for extremely consistent results,
Mhm.
something to pop out. So the same kind of design, extreme case sampling, has like different flavors, and we're seeing those different.
I
Can we
don't
add this? Can we
understand.
add this to the design? Since we're talking about design, can we add this to design? Now,
So,
at the top of the conversation, you asked about will sun sign. Place the sun sign as a part of the control. What are we going? We're going to say, well, our usual viewpoint of that is Cancer. Let us put the can 10 the sun as a control group, and we're going to call it A. This group is going to behave as Cancer. Okay, and we just put them over that side. Boom, 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 and we just use that as a control point. What do you have to say about that, Chris, in terms of using that? Since we have Cancer to be in that zone, 90 degrees to
Yeah.
99, using the sun sign.
So, how exactly are you
No,
going to use the sun sign? Are you talking
no,
about?
no. What I'm saying is on the backdrop, since we're using the term like control group, the consensus is that 90 is a part of what is the known Cancer. That's Cancer zone. That's where
Right.
we know Cancer has. So let us use the sun sign, the sun as the control group
so,
for Cancer. We're going to use that. Say,
so
well, over this side it's going to be the Cancer, right? Against
hold on.
against what?
That's not a control group. That's just an
Uh,
alternative theory. So,
oh,
yeah, and that's a great idea, but it's not a control group. A control group is something that's not another way of interpreting or analyzing the data. It's another way of selecting the people in a different way to see what the random distribution is. So
yeah,
that's a
well,
good idea,
yes,
but
that's
in statistical terms, what you're talking about is a good idea, but it's not a control group.
you wouldn't say that based just use that as just as you describe it as a control group being not a part of the question itself, but just 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 by itself as a random. We just use that as a
Des,
descriptive
let me just say
question.
something. Let me just say something. If you're going to compare like the meaning in cancer or something, that's a comparison. It's not a control. Control group is a specific statistical thing, and it has a lot to do with sampling methods. It's a way of sampling in a different way. So it's just not a control group. It's a good idea, but it wouldn't replace it. It wouldn't do what a control group does for us.
Hmm.
The control group is the same thing sampled differently. It has nothing to do with alternative ideas or interpretation. It has to do with sampling. It has nothing to do with interpretation except the interpretation we're already talking about.
I kind of go. I think I'm making it the same placement to how you are describing it. and me making the top of it being a descriptive of another sign may have created a misunderstanding, but that in itself, that's how you describe it, could represent a control in that fashion. But me putting on an extra meaning and dimension to what we're talking about might kind of make us think otherwise.
Mhm.
But let us go to another point where we can ratify this as sweet and clean as possible.
Okay.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. How are we going to rate the people on power, leadership, et cetera, these eighth house qualities? It's fine to just do it, yourself based on what it says. You can count words. There's something we call inter-rater reliability. Like you can have 3 or 5 people read a biography, and they don't even have to be astrologers. In fact, it might be better if they're not astrologers and they don't even know what the research is about. You could have 5 people read a biography and rate it on how much the people are from 1 to 10 on this description that you give. I mean, there's different ways of doing it, but that's a big question. How are you going to rate the people on whether they have these qualities or not?
All
Yeah.
right. Certain qualities is going to be already made visible. Some you would have to go into the biography to see some other features of that person that is not really announced. And sometimes some of these, like so one of the signification of that zone is that some people are crime built for that. They're into crimes, they're into sexual deviation, sexual, all kind of stuff. All of those stuff are placement. So you would find that some of these stuff you have to either dig and find the answer. But for the greater portion, you would have it on top where people just readily say, hey, that's there right there. But
Okay, let me just make this
going
clear.
and-
Taz, let me just interrupt a second. What I said at the beginning of this meeting is one of the things about modern research methods is someone needs to be able to replicate what you did and come up with the same answer. Suppose some particular famous person shows up, they have a score of 15, like all these midpoints are there. Suppose that I read the biography, you read the biography, 4 other people read the biography. Are they all going to draw the same conclusion as to how well the person fits that characteristic? I think you're going to get somewhat different scores. Like I might,
Okay, I got you on that.
Yeah.
I got you on that. Yeah, the interpretation of individuals is going to be different. But what's going to be consensus is going to be how the person is how the person interface with known things. So, like for example, I'm a criminal person, so I'm going to find what's going to be my interface. I'm going to be in law enforcement database. I'm going to be in a number of newsreels about me
okay, hold on. Let me just
crime.
interrupt. Let me interrupt again. I got your idea. Let me just say this. If somebody else replicates your study, they just come, another astrologer says, oh, let me do this study. Even if they use the same data, are they going to come up with the same exact conclusions? Like, is it going to be clear that say 10 people or however many people you have that are the extreme first decanate Cancer, is there going to be any disagreement about exactly how?
No, it's going to be spot right on target, dead target. The way out there's a reason why the sun is not even clipped into this part. This is going to be
Okay, let me
right
interrupt you.
on.
Let me interrupt you because you're going into theory. We're not ready for theory yet. We're just trying to get a design. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is that it will be so clear. Like it's going to say this
Yeah.
guy's a criminal or this guy, is a multi-billionaire or something. It's going to be so clear that you're not really worried about different ratings. It should be very, very clear and not very
Yes.
debatable. Okay,
Yes.
then that's good. Then we don't need multiple raters. You're saying that somebody reads your research is going to be obvious.
Yeah.
So I think we're pretty much ready to do the research, and I can fire up the series program, and we can create the astro signature, and
I
we
have
can
one
see
question,
how it would
Dan.
work. Yeah.
From what I heard you say a while ago, you said that somebody can have a 15 score in this area, and they can clearly not have the characteristics that Desdell described, and that does not invalidate the theory.
Um,
It's going to be an
it's going to be
impossible.
how many in the experimental group versus how many in the control group. Like if you have if you say you do 20 and you get 18 out of 20 of the experimental group, but in the control group you only have 8 out of 20, you can do a statistical test and you can see that it's still more likely.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. There's one other thing I'd add to this discussion. Uh, First, just as an exploration, I would take the people who scored real high with regard to having these midpoints in the first 10 degrees of Cancer, and I would enter them into Vincent's Mastro Expert program
Hmm.
because that is taking a lot of different elements in your chart and creating keywords for those elements, and then you see which keywords occur most often and what floats up to the top in describing who you are. So at the very least, as an exploration, if these are people that we expect to see a lot of Scorpio or eighth house characteristics appear in, will Vincent Gadbou's uh, Mastro Expert software will those things turn up in the keywords that his software zeroes in on? Also, in one application of his software, he did a very successful chart matching experiments where he took biographies of several people who had extensive biographies. He extracted keywords from those biographies and then looked to see if his program could match up the charts, with the keywords the program gave the horoscopes, if those could be matched successfully with the keywords extracted from the biographies. And the answer was yes, it was statistically significant. But in extracting keywords from those biographies, that's kind of the same problem we're talking about here. So,
Exactly. So what, let me,
yeah, he may have solved that problem.
yeah, let me underscore review what you're saying. And he got that idea from the Galcoins and he implemented it in detail, which is what Vincent Godbout did is, and this is my understanding of what he did, is he got the biographies for people and he had the software count the number of times a given word appears, right? Isn't that what he did, Christopher?
No, I don't think the software um, people had to read the biographies and
So
extract.
people read the biographies, and did they do some objective counting or they just assessed it?
I think they had to, extract keywords, descriptive keywords from the biographies, and then those keywords had to sometimes, I think, be converted into synonyms so that they would fit the 72 keywords that Vincent's program uses.
So
But
he has a person rated on these, say, 72 different characteristics.
yeah,
I
I
wonder
think
if
that
that,
was the subjective human part
yeah,
that I'm sure he has thought about this a lot, and he probably has a system for accurately getting keywords from the biographies.
yeah, we need to talk to Vincent some more, read his stuff about exactly, because Vincent has done what a lot of us would like to do. He's, in some way or another, he has evaluated famous people on different characteristics.
Yes.
And if he has that, we can just use his results. We don't have to, we need to see more clearly exactly what he has.
Yeah.
But I think that could be a huge help.
Yeah. It could be very useful. It might work.
We might be replicating what he already did. He's already read the biographies, characterized the people on these things, I think. So I
Well,
need to
yeah.
verify that.
There's something that concerns me about this. I feel like the definition of the characteristics saying eighth house and Scorpio, that is not the kind of words that we can test. You have to have much more specific statements, definitions of those things.
Yeah,
That
that's why I gave the descriptions. That's why I give it a
Yeah, I
specific
think he was
Right.
just
description.
saying
Right.
eighth house Scorpio, just astrology language. But he's got
Yeah.
Yeah,
clear terms like crime, leadership,
okay,
etc. Yeah, that's just for us
yeah, it's,
inner talk, but he's got clearly defined behaviors and stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for example, the set of data that Vincent already extracted keywords from, the biographies he extracted keywords from for his chart matching experiment, um, we might be able to look at that and look at the same data and see which of those people score really high,
Yeah.
for midpoints being in that first decan of Cancer.
Wow.
Vincent's system will do well with what I'm doing. It definitely will do well. It would just kind of tap into a lot of stuff that I mean. There's some tedious thing about it. It will get us lazy at times, but what Chris raised about Vincent is correct, where is his system going in and kind of pinning all these little words that are associated with this descriptive, and you just go feel, and I think he will do well. I mean, his system will do well with what we're talking about right here.
Wow. So we might have hit on a new research design using Vincent's work. And instead of going through the people, we could go through his database and match the characteristics. So I will
Or we
email.
or we can develop our own, because we tend to be lazy now. So we want to get our system where we either mix up whatever is out there better than what is out there. And I know we try to get other people involved, but if we can just go and rigorously get into to finding out what other apparatus we can use, and to get into to getting the answers and getting it to where we're not going on the left or right or guessing or anything like that. It will be good. But Vincent von Gogh have the is in that avenue to which where we need to go.
Yeah, and I think both methodologies need to be looked at. Um, I mean, it's possible that Vincent software may be measuring different things which don't show up with regard to what Des is seeing in that first decan of Cancer. That's a possibility. We don't know yet until we look at it. So, I mean, one possibility is that uh, when we find these extreme case samples using serious software, and y'all look at it in the same way that y'all look at charts when you're studying, or biographies when you're studying various vibrations, that may show something very pronounced. But if Vincent software is measuring different things, it's possible it might not show up there at all. But
Yeah,
Both avenues I think need to be explored.
I agree. So I'm going to contact Vincent and find out more about how he's characterized all the people and exactly what he has, because that could maybe be really useful.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm looking in the Sirius software. This is where we create and ask for signature, a group of variables. And it looks like using the user interface, we cannot do a DES's research because I have midpoints, but I was thinking I could do a midpoint um, to zero Aries, but zero Aries is not listed here.
Hmm.
Um, and if I go to degree areas, it only gives me planets. I can't select a midpoint. So using the user interface, it looks like, unless I'm overlooking something, it looks like um, it looks like we can't do it. Now, there's some things you can do if you manually edit the file, and it might be possible. But using the user interface, it doesn't look like it's possible to see if a midpoint is in a degree area.
Hmm. Can
Uh,
Sirius export the midpoint data?
um, mm, it has, yeah. Well, let me see. If we go to the export part of it, make data for, um, this is making data, individual charts. Um, I can midpoint, I can export midpoint structures, but there's nothing allowing me to just export just the midpoint. So you could export the planet positions, and then in whatever software you would have to calculate the midpoints. You have to do all this. It's
Yeah.
also, again, it's possible that the series creates a text file, and there may be a value for zero Aries or for something, and we can edit that file. Um,
Yeah. So at the very least, it'd take a bit of work, but at the very least, you can export the planetary positions.
yeah, you can export.
And then you can um, take that file into Excel or better yet into R and do some coding to find the positions of these particular midpoints you're looking for, and you can sort them from you know 0 degrees to 360 degrees and see which ones fall within that decanate and Cancer. And it'd take a bit of coding, but one could get it that way, I would think.
Yeah, it doesn't look very straightforward unless we can edit that file,
Yeah.
and I think we can. It's just there are features that are not in the user interface. Like I think if you put zero for the planet number, it makes it zero Aries. And then we could say we want a waxing square with a 10-degree uh, orb from, whatever, 95 with, we want a 95-degree angle with a 5-degree orb or something. We could trick it as long as I could get zero Aries in there. So we might be able to do it. I have to play with it um, and see. If not, I don't know if Jigsaw or some other program would be able to do something like this. I don't know.
All right. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to do the midpoint is giving you a problem to kind of populate the answer onto it,
Yeah, I'm not
or
able
is
to
it
get
just
serious. Sirius will not tell me if somebody has Moon Mercury midpoint in the first decade of Cancer. It won't tell me that.
okay? So that means it's more like a manual thing.
Well, we might be able to trick Sirius into.
Uh,
Um,
All
I'd have
right.
to look. It
All
would take me like a half hour
right.
digging through and playing around. But if it won't do it, I don't, we'd have to
It-
program
it-
something in Excel or R or Python or whatever. You'd have to, yeah, we don't have a way to do it.
all right.
I can't trick it.
Can it do this, right? Can it do this as a lesser point? Uh, can it do a rising sign? Can it do a moon sign?
Sure.
Okay, do that.
So instead of midpoints, we'll just do the moon and ascendant.
Just do that. It's going to be a lesser point to it, but because what we're running into is software is like it's lesser than what we are at in terms of our development in astrology. Because it seems like softwares are fun. I've been having this issue a long time, even with back in the days when you were doing your software. I always have to call, or you couldn't answer on that most of the time because of the software doesn't do what most of what other people do. But anyway, that's for simplicity's sake, and
Yeah.
for the argument of what we are doing. Just throw that
Yeah, this
in
is,
as a
I
lesson.
like this idea. What happens with research is you're dealing with the real world. We're not living in an ideal world. We can get whatever we want. And all you need is something that works better than random. You don't have to have a design that's everything you wished and hoped for. So I like what Des is saying. It would be much, much, much better if we could do this. We can't do it easily, if at all. Um, I mean, without extensive coding. And so, how many points do you want to give the moon and the ascendant, Des? Are you still there?
Yeah.
We're going to give the rising 6 points and the moon 4.
Okay. All right. And you don't want to add the sun with 1 point or any other.
Yeah. You can add the sun with 1 point. We kind of going a half base here now.
And you don't want to put Mercury or Venus in or anything?
Yeah. You can put Mercury in there. It says as a 2. But yeah.
Mercury with 1 point and Venus 1 point also?
No Venus. Just the
Okay.
Mercury, the moon, and just for the lesser extent the sun.
Okay. So we have moon 4 points, ascendant 6 points, sun 1 point, Mercury 1 point. This is not as good, but Desdale feels like this will still give some of the qualities, and we're expecting the people with this to be more than random. Let's make the astro signature and run it. Um, so this is the reality. Sometimes you just can't do what you really want to do. But as long as you can get some uh, information that's useful, it's better than nothing. Okay, so let me just take one of these things. I've got a mess here. Hold on. Let me just take this one. Okay, so I'm going to call this degree meanings. And this is a feature in the Sirius software, and we're just going to make the astro signature. So I've got a degree dignity area, and I'm going to do the ascendant and degree area. I think it's 36, and I think 36 sectors. I'm going to divide them into 10-degree areas. And I want a number of sectors of each sign. That's weird. So it's 3 sectors of each sign. And then I want, what, the 10th one or something? Yeah, 10th one is 0 to 10 Cancer. It's a little weird, but it let me select it. So I told the program I want the ascendant in 0 to 10 Cancer, Now, I believe if it's a 10 cancer, it's not going to include it. It's going to be up to 9.99999. And when you get to 10, it will not consider it. Um, so I think this will fit what Des wants. And then I just add the others. Um, so we want the moon with 4 points, and we want Mercury with 1 point, the sun. Let's do sun first with 1 point. And then we want Mercury with 1 point. Let me delete this thing. So I made a list of 4 items. Ascendant in that first decanate, 6 points, moon with 4 points, sun, 1 point, Mercury, and 1 point. Now we can just run it and we can find out who has the most of these in the first decanate. And I'll start it. I'll stop it because it takes a long time to run, but let's go ahead and start it. I'm going to say I want only AA data, and I'll just run it on everything. And it just begins running. It takes forever to run. It's very, very slow, extremely slow. So by the time it goes through 20 or 30,000 of these, it'll probably take what? I don't know how long. But I can stop it. I'll stop it and we'll see if anybody has it. Let me stop it.
But just do it for simplicity, Aris. We just, we were very raw on this thing here. So
Yeah. So if we let this run, we're going to get more people with more points. But what we have is we have some people with 6 points. That's probably the ascendant in 0 to 10 cancer. So if I just randomly select one of these people with 6 points and I look at a wheel, there it is, 7 degrees cancer. That's why this person got 6 points. Or if I randomly select another one, Ben Affleck, the actor. Let's look at Ben Affleck. 0 to 10 cancer rising, getting 6 points. So if we run it longer, we're going to get people with more than one object there, ascendant plus something else, and they'll be even stronger. And then after we see how many they are, Des can decide how many he wants to do, and then we could do a random number generator thing or periodic sampling of the people that have 0 to be the control group. And because there's two things. There's no selection bias. Desdale does not get to select the charts he's interpreting. And number two, we have extreme cases. And they're making discoveries in genetics and all kinds of things using extreme cases. So for that reason, it's going to give us some useful information. So we've got a design. All we have to do is let this thing run and then collect the data, decide how you're going to sample the control group, and then you just start at the top of the list and go down however far you want to go. It'd be nice if you can do at least 10 people. The thing is, this can get very, very time consuming, reading the biographies. But since you have a clear idea of what you're looking for, a lot faster than the exploratory thing I was doing, yours is more of confirmatory. You have a clear idea of what you want. You might be able to do 20 or 30 without taking too much time.
how many you got right now?
Well, I didn't let it run all the way. I mean, you can have as many as you want. You can just cut it off wherever you want. I'll start this analysis
Yeah.
again. This will take, this will run at,
we understand that it's going to take a long time, but off the top, just grab 3 or 4 people out of the top of the tree.
well, until I run it all, I really don't know. I really don't know how many, if anybody will come up with the maximum score or not. You'll get some people having ascendant plus at least 2 other points. You're going to get a handful of really high scores. Exactly how many, I don't know. I have to let it run. So I'll let this run after our meeting is over, and then I'll email you the file.
Oh, okay,
And
we gotta see. I gotta come up with another software, make a software.
or
We
if you
gotta,
want to use the
we gotta,
midpoint,
we got to do some serious improvement of what we're doing, because just at the base, our software not permitting us to do all what we want to do in terms of research.
exactly. So
Because we couldn't plug in that. That's a major handicap. We have to either softball it by having a lesser of what we want, and to get the idea across. But anyway, we're just going to use that as just as a player.
yeah, you're
See
right.
what we got.
And I've decided I'm going to be working in software development to speed up our ability to have research features. But
Right. Hooray.
the limitation of the software right now is a big problem. And yeah, Christopher and I were just Christopher just sent me an email about the need for software and reviewing it. So we're all having the same thoughts. Software is a big limitation right now. But on the other
Yeah.
hand, we have these databases. What if we didn't have them at all? I mean, it's all relative, but we are not able to do exactly what we want to do sometimes.
Well, I guess this is a necessary problem. It just forces us to do certain things. It's just going to make you go get a software, and I have to go create a software myself. I'm building a, yeah, I'm building a system myself. I might as well I just make the corresponding software.
Okay, so yeah. Um, all right, so we answered this question, how to do research. If you wanted to know what 0 to 10 cancer, or any 10 degrees or whatever, this is an excellent way to do it. And if you have, let me summarize this point. If you have a clear idea of what you expect in the interpretation, then you can have a control group and you can do your research faster because you're just going to read the biographies to see if they have the trait you want. If you do a more exploratory, open-ended, and you want to just see what the people have, it's extremely time consuming because you're reading all these biographies and trying to find consistent themes, and it could be anything. So, yeah, so we learned about some variations, and we also learned that we're going to get in touch with Vincent to see how we might be able to use his software for this kind of research. Okay. Before we end, we're at the hour and a half. Is there anything any of you here was hoping and wishing we could discuss and we can just give a few minutes to it, or are we good? Each month I try to, we spent a lot of time with Penelope one month. We spent a lot of time with Desdale here. So yeah, you can come back and we'll focus on whatever you want. But any other things you want to mention before we close up? We're all good?
Uh, uh, Now, with our problem with the software, uh, there's another thing to by itself with the apparatus of evidence based and using the existing apparatus. Is there any other thing that we can add or create ourselves among astrologers and among our community that we have here to improve on the collecting of information, or just the whole idea of just going into and making evidence of what we do? We can't rely on what exists already. We have to improve our software on the evidence-based apparatus. That by itself is not going to be helpful for us, but we need to improve on based on our weekly meeting or monthly meeting. We've been picking up on things that are handicapped to us. We just need to come together, just like the minds of everybody here, to bring more ideas to make something change. cannot remain the same. We have to make a move forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think, my thought about it is it's a matter of who wants to do what you might call the heavy lifting. You could say, like, we have people who need houses. Who's going to donate the lumber, the nails? Who's going to build it? Who has the talent to build it? Software, research, it all takes time, and you need a team of people doing different things. We have a team of people doing different things. Um, Nelson's developing software. I'm developing software. Linda's developing software. Marlon's doing incredible data collection and developing software. So I know Kai has been working with, I think, Penelope, helping massage the data and organize things and implement things in Excel. So, Vincent Godbout, who we talked about, he's developing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I mean, we're here to do it, but there's no magic wand because it's all takes a lot of time. So, and tonight we had, Michelle and volunteer to and will to volunteer to make that repository for information. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas and is willing to do, contribute the work or combine somehow, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and as I was saying in my email, I think uh, the Cosmobiology Institute also has to be engaged with developing educational tools for people, because I doubt that most astrologers are well versed in statistics and uh, research and the things you have to watch out for in research. And since I've taught statistics for several years, creating PowerPoints and videos on a lot of the basics of research and statistics, that's something that's easy for me to do, just like creating software is a lot easier for you to do than me. So we all
Yeah,
have different ways in which we can contribute.
absolutely. So one of the things we did at Cosmobiology Institute is we wrote these research guidelines, a short version and a long version.
Mhm.
And so this is information on um, why is it not coming up? What's going on? That was weird. I clicked on it, nothing happened. Whoa, something strange is happening. Okay, we have to check that out. Maybe it downloaded it or something. But anyway, it was supposed to open that up. I don't know why it didn't. Um, oh, I think there's something weird on my computer. Oh, there, it downloaded it. Okay. Thought it was just going to show it. It's probably the setting in my browser. Anyway, we can open these things up. So this is the beginning of the education. We wrote these guidelines. We spent a lot of time on this, literally hundreds of hours, developing these guidelines for research. So this is something anybody can read and work through. And we have a long version of it and a shorter version of it. Um, And then, yeah, we need articles, we need more videos. I have made a lot of videos on how to start doing research. So, Christopher, you could look at those and then see if you know, just need to totally redo them or incorporate them or whatever.
Oh, well, as is often the case, we're complementary.
Yeah, we tend to be very complimentary.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the things I may talk about will only add on to what you've already done.
Yeah, let me show you what I've done. If you go to my website, astrologydc.com, and you go to the bottom and you go to theory and research, I have a section called Research Methods Fundamentals. And look at all these videos. Astrology research, how to do it, part 1, 2, 3, 4. Most of these things are a half hour long. So there's hours and hours, essentials of research stuff. And then something about evidence-based research versus science. That's the fundamental section. And then here's particular issues, explore just different different topics. Cohen's D, bias, blah, blah, blah. So, this could be organized, and then here's some actual studies that I've done. So, yeah, so there are materials, and I think we need to keep moving forward. But what you could do, Christopher, I think would be just at least like skim through to get an idea of what's there,
Yeah.
and then go ahead and start building stuff. And now we have the institute, and so we have a whole support system to support everything. Yeah. Okay. Are we all good? I hope I didn't put anybody to sleep early tonight with all this detail. Are we good?
I
Okay.
think so.
All right. Yeah, we're at an hour and a half. We can stop here. Um, yeah, so again, let me just finish by saying this monthly meeting is here to help you do what you want to do. So just come in. It could be general questions, specific ideas, anything you want to get into. For fun, I'm going to show you my new toy. You want to see my new toy?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
There's the new toy. It's a book. So this book is called Basketball Data Science. So it's a book on doing, and it uses R, which is my favorite research tool. So that's convenient. Most things are either R or Python. And yeah, so I'm working with Marlon on sports research. And I found this book that has nothing to do with astrology, but this is people predicting basketball games and basketball performance based on previous performance. They're in the home court, who are they playing against, blah, 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 blah. And they can, predict performance. So I want to use the non-astrological plus the astrological. But this is my new toy. I got it just yesterday. You're seriously nerdy when you get very excited about getting a book like that in the mail.
Man, Santino, I'm disappointed. I told you was going to show us the Lamborghini or you got in the backyard.
No, no, this is even better. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, the work goes on, the explorations go on and on and on. Okay, everyone. I think let me check the chat in case someone isn't able to unmute. I haven't looked at the chat at all, so I might not have responded to anything in here. Um, um, Okay. Oh, Kai says she really reads Chicago. She reads them repeatedly. Yay! We didn't do all that work for nothing. Yay! Yay! Kai's reading them repeatedly. This is so good. If it helps one person, it's worth it. We spent so many, God, endless hours on that thing. And Vincent contributed. Vincent Godbout, he contributed a lot with that as well. Okay.
So, Santino, you're going to send me the report or what's it?
Yeah. I'll
what's going
email it to you as soon as it's done running. It's probably almost done. I'll just send it to you. It's a big file. I'll zip it up and I'll send you a zip file with the
Okay.
results. Yeah. Okay,
All
everyone.
right.
Thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you next month.
Thank you, Santino.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.